And why are we here? What is this place? This place is called the university. And the university's aim is to teach, definitely. It's about learning and development in different perspectives. It could be emotional.
So, psychology is here to help us how to relate to people, how to communicate with people, how to establish good relationships. Do you understand me? We define delusion as they actually think about something which does not exist. They feel things through their sense organs which is not authentic, which is not there. Eye contact is important. If you don't have eye contact, it means that you're not strong enough. You don't have the power. Why shy? Because you want to be teachers. You're going to teach children at school. And do you think that I am a good student? Do you think that I answered all the questions properly? So these people are always thinking that, no, I'm not a good one. I'm doing everything incorrectly. So they have this fear. Anything that happens to you is here. Anything. So you change it, you manage it, you think positively, things are going to change.
You and I, professors, educated, master students, PhD, post-PhD, still we need to know, we need to go for the literacy, for the education, information, the knowledge about what?
Well, now let's move on to our next keynote speaker, Dr. Farzania Haratia from Suzhou University.
In translation studies, apart from MT or machine translation, we are dealing with human beings. Whether we are working on translation, in the category of theoretical or practical or applied, for example, whether we are dealing with process-oriented approaches toward translation, or product-oriented or function-oriented, or whether we are dealing with the students in translator training courses, in applied, in that system, or in evaluation and criticism of translation, we are dealing with human beings here. And human beings, in psychology, when you're dealing with human, it's about the individual differences. We have to take it into account. We have to consider that when we are teaching the future translators, we have to know that these two students, these two translators are different. That is why the outcomes of their translations are also different. That is why we have one novel and about 16 different translations, very different in a style, in the way they have perceived it, in the way they have understood it. And it goes to the different layers in linguistics regarding the syntax, semantics, regarding the pragmatics even. So what is happening here is about understanding. And understanding is something which is happening inside the mind, which is dealing with the cognitive processes. And this is the topic, I am focusing today in the panel. And not only the cognitive processes or information processing, but also about metacognitive processes. And by metacognitive, I mean meta-memory. I mean regulating the information. Controlling, managing them. It's about meta. It is actually one stage, one level higher in the order. Maybe go one level further. It is actually thinking about thinking. It is learning about learning. Here the students, regarding the translation studies, translators, future translators, here they are learning to evaluate the strategies that they are using in the time of translation, whether they are using like Lawrence Venuti's, or for example, Nord's or Julian House, covered over translation, Newmark, or NIDA, communicative, semantic translation, formal or dynamic, the different types of strategies that are used by the different students. domestication, foreignization. These strategies, at one point, they need to evaluate their own act of translation and their own renderings.
Good afternoon. I'm recording this video as a part of our speech for Hong Kong University Conference that was held December 8th. This is a part of a project that my colleague Ms. Lee and I about verbal and non-verbal communication in educational context. I thought that it might be an informative and appealing topic. Awareness and consciousness about non-verbal communication and gestures that could convey meaning would be useful for you in order to establish a more effective communication. As a social human being, we are always transmitting and conveying a lot of information, whether through some words, and we call it verbally, sometimes it is non-verbal. With facial expressions, gestures, postures, even vocalics regarding the tone, the pace, the volume that you have, they are all conveying information. And as a teacher in the classroom, we have to be aware of this mechanism involved. The renowned scientist Paul Ekman believes that there is a communication between the facial expressions and the emotions, and emotions are experienced around the whole globe universally. Apart from whatever the sociocultural context is, they all experience happiness, sadness, anger, and fear, and other different emotions. Hall, another scientist, he believes that something above 60% of the communication is not conveyed through the words, and it is actually transmitted non-verbally. Only something about 40% in the social meaning of the conversation is transmitted through the words. Imagine a police officer at the crossroad. He is not using words in order to regulate and to control the drivers and the cars. He is just using gestures. He's just raising his hands in order to, for example, showing that turn right, turn left, stop, go straight. So sometimes we use nonverbal communication and these gestures or emblems or the postures or these facial expressions in order to regulate, in order to control. Sometimes with our eyes, we ask someone to keep quiet. Sometimes with our eyes, we invite somebody to the conversation. Sometimes we ask somebody to conceal the information. So this is the way, and not only through the facial expression, but also through the vocalics, through the pace and the volume and the tone that we're using, and this is specifically used by the teachers inside the class.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Farzaneh Haratian, and she is our esteemed dean at the Faculty of Foreign Studies, Dr. Yanlin. Together we're going to have our keynote speech for the conference ICEHM, which is held in Porto, Portugal, today, November 1st, 2022. Unfortunately, due to some travel limitations regarding this COVID pandemic, we couldn't attend in person. That's why we're recording this lecture for you, and the conference organizers would kindly play it in the morning 10:30 as it was scheduled. With the actually consequences that COVID pandemic had on psychological well-being and mental health, not only for the whole people. In particular, we're focusing on teachers and students and those people who are involved in education.
Yes, as we know, it was learning, hard in progressive education.
So as you see, the COVID brought us misery, brought us a catastrophe. You know that education is the basic primary foundation, a necessity to any civilization, for any nation, for any country, if they aim to progress, to advance. And then we want the students to learn, but how could we expect them to learn when they were depressed, when they were filled with sadness, with anger, with frustration, when there was not this mental well-being and a lot of psychological problems, and then when they are not motivated enough, you know that for motivation, for attention, because when there is no attention, no concentration, no focus on the material, to the content of the subject matter that is going to be taught. So this is the waste of time. They're just like looking at the teacher. And even the teachers going to the classroom as the main important key figures, you know that. The way the teachers feel, the whole students would feel. Her feelings and her emotions is directing the whole emotions for the whole class, and not only for the students, but also for the other colleagues, for the other staff members.
Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Kidd, Spanish Tragedy. We have Ben Jonson talking about humors. Very important book on every man in his humor. Volpone, Fox, Alchemist. These are the writings by Ben Jonson. Don't forget. Yes, this is about Renaissance time. And time is called Victorian period. And we have Jane Austen. You remember Jane Austen? We watched the movie Emma, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, talking about women. 1864. In America. In America, 1864 is still repeated. I talked about it last session, so no more. Who do we have here? What do we have? Romanticism. William Blake. O Rose, thou art sick, an invisible worm that flies at night in a harrowing storm has found thy bed of crimson joy. They talk about nature. They talk about personal feelings. William Blake, Wordsworth, Keats, Coleridge. So this is it. Mark Twain. Everybody knows Mark Twain. Huckleberry Finn. Yes, and we have The Awakening. Good, thank you. Stephen Crane, The Narratives of Life of Frederick Douglass. But remember Mark Twain. In this time, who do we have? We have Mark Twain. Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn. When? In this time of realism, social realism, aesthetic realism. Yes, my dear, regionalism, I don't want it. Naturalism, I want. Thank you. Intensified version of realism. So actually, naturalism is realism, but intensified, dark. It's very dark, depressing. From Old English literature, we moved to Middle English literature and what happened in the different actually years to England. And we know that the Vikings attacked, and we know about the William, the Conqueror from France.
Sometimes I ask my students at the university to take their pens and their notebooks and start writing about a very important topic. And what is that? The question is, who am I? In the beginning, it might seem a bit easy, but as they start writing, it looks more challenging and not simple at all. This question includes all your fears, your worries, the memories in past, the childhood time, the sufferings, the hardships, the talents, abilities, capabilities, personality features, what people think about you, the way you have been evaluated before, or how you think about yourself, or the points you have already found out, or the way you identify everything inside you. So it is like a journey inside. It's like a self-discovery, a self-knowledge, self-recognition, and it is not that easy. But if you do it, if you start knowing about yourself, I cannot say I guarantee, but I can say that you know how to sit your goals better and how to achieve them in much shorter time successfully. It's about you and finding the best way possible to reach those goals. It's not only about goals, it's about also roles, the favorable, desirable roles that you always dream to be. I don't know what it could be. Maybe you like the role of a mother, the role of a teacher, a politician, a scientist, the role of a human being, a useful, good human being. Whatever you desire as a role, then you write them down. And it's all about the choices that we make and we have. Because choices that we have in one stage of our life can have consequences to the end of our lives. And we have to be careful about this. So the first step is self-discovery, self-knowledge. It's about you.
Now we need to talk about the aims, the functions, the purposes of ERS. You know that emotions are all ruled and controlled by our thoughts. I need to say that whatever we are, the way we feel, the failures, the happiness, the success, if life is good, if life is bad, all is because of how we are thinking. I mean, what is inside our brain? The thoughts, which are negative or positive, constructive or destructive. These thoughts are important and we have to be very careful. We have to identify them first and then find the solution, find the way, find some approaches in order to handle that, to deal with these thoughts. Don't let this intruding these negative thoughts to stay for a long time in your brain, because then they paralyze you. Then you're not allowed to do anything else. Strategies are also categorized into two classes of antecedent-focused strategy or response-focused strategy. It means that the strategies you're using before emotion, before the occurrence of emotion, or the strategies you're using after this emotion is there. Now what to do, now how to deal with it, how to manage it, how to regulate it. And all of us have been in classroom. All of us have been in the schools. All of us have memories, I mean good memories or bad memories of the time we were studying as students in classes. Encourage students and motivate the students to go for better learning, to try harder, to make more efforts, and then to be successful. And some teachers would hinder that. We all have experienced different types of emotions. I have listed actually here in a table as positive and negative emotions. Shyness. And what I noticed in China when I started teaching here was that my students were shy. They had questions, but they would not come forth to ask me. This is exactly what I also experienced when I was in Japan, this degree of shyness. In Kuala Lumpur, I did not notice. It was not that high. In Finland, in Romania, not that high. In Australia, it was not high. But here in China, I could see that they are shy. So as teachers, we have to use some methods, some procedures to help them